The drug that's reshaping the entire human body started in the venom glands of a desert lizard that hadn't eaten in months. Not a lab, not a pharmaceutical company. A lizard. The Gila monster, to be specific. And the reason a single molecule from that animal's saliva turned into the most talked about drug on Earth, one that's currently inside roughly 1 in 8 American adults' is a story about biology, accidental discovery, and a mechanism so elegant it almost doesn't seem real. Because Ozempic doesn't just help people lose weight, it literally changes how your brain processes the thought of food. It protects your heart. It may reshape your brain's structure. And the science of exactly how it does all that is genuinely one of the more fascinating things happening in medicine right now. Stay with me because we're going to get into the dopamine angle and what researchers have started calling food noise. And that part alone is going to change how you think about hunger forever.
Okay, so let's go back to 1992. A physician-researcher named Dr. John Eng is working at the Bronx VA Medical Center, and he's studying the venom of a Gila monster, big, slow desert lizard, known mostly for being one of the very few venomous lizards on Earth. And Eng notices something strange. The Gila monster can go months without eating, during hibernation, and when it comes out, its blood sugar is perfectly stable. It's not starving, its pancreas is doing just fine. Something in that animal is regulating glucose in a way that human metabolism can't pull off. He isolates a molecule from the venom, calls it exendin-4, and when he sequences it, he realizes it's 53% identical to a human hormone called GLP-1, a hormone that had just been characterized by Danish researcher Jens Juel Holst and his team in the 1980s. GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1, is released in your gut every single time you eat. It tells your body, hey, food arrived, deal with it. Here's the problem with natural GLP-1. It lasts about 2 minutes in your bloodstream before an enzyme called DPP-4 destroys it. 2 minutes, that's it. But exendin-4, the lizard molecule, was different. It resisted that breakdown. It stuck around. Eng realized he might have found the key to a drug that could mimic GLP-1, but actually last long enough to matter. The VA declined to patent it. Eng spent 3 years pitching pharma companies who weren't interested. Eventually, Amylin Pharmaceuticals licensed the molecule. In 2005, the FDA approved exenatide, brand name Byetta, as the very first GLP-1 drug in history. The class had been born. Semaglutide, which is what Ozempic actually is, came later from Novo Nordisk. Scientists tweaked the GLP-1 molecule in 2 key ways. They made a small structural change to resist DPP-4 breakdown, and they attached a fatty acid chain that lets the molecule bind to albumin, a protein in your blood that carries things around. That binding is what makes semaglutide last approximately 1 week, hence the once-a-week injection. One modification from a lizard's venom, half a century of science, and you get a drug that billions of people now recognize by name. So, what does it actually do in the body? The short version, semaglutide is a GLP-1 receptor agonist, which just means it walks up to GLP-1 receptors and turns them on. And those receptors exist in a lot of places. First stop, the pancreas. When your blood sugar goes up after eating, semaglutide tells your beta cells to release insulin, the hormone that moves glucose out of your blood and into your cells. But here's the critical nuance. It only does this when your blood sugar is actually high. That's called glucose-dependent action, and it's why Ozempic rarely causes hypoglycemia, dangerous low blood sugar, on its own. It doesn't force insulin secretion when there's no glucose to manage, it just responds. At the same time, it suppresses glucagon, a hormone your pancreas also produces but which does the opposite. It tells your liver to dump stored glucose into the blood. By quieting glucagon, Ozempic lowers what's called hepatic glucose output. Your liver stops flooding your system. Second stop, your stomach. Ozempic slows gastric emptying, the rate at which food actually leaves your stomach and enters your small intestine. Food sits there longer. You feel full faster, and you stay full longer. Smaller meals feel like enough. This also smooths out the blood sugar spike you'd normally get right after eating, because glucose is entering your bloodstream more gradually. Third stop, the hypothalamus. This is where it starts getting interesting. Your hypothalamus is a tiny structure at the base of your brain, and it runs your body's hunger and satiety signals like an air traffic controller. There are 2 competing populations of neurons in there. One, the POMC/CART neurons, fire when you've had enough to eat. They say stop. The other, the NPY/AGRP neurons, drive hunger. They say keep going. GLP-1 receptors sit on both. Semaglutide activates the stop signals and inhibits the keep going ones simultaneously. The result is that you feel genuinely less hungry, and food feels sufficient when you've had less of it. It's not willpower, it's not psychology, it's receptor biology. But that's the expected part. The fourth mechanism is the one researchers are still mapping out, and it's the reason so many patients describe their experience with this drug as something beyond just not being hungry. Here's something a lot of people don't know about hunger. A massive chunk of it isn't even physical. It's not your stomach growling, it's your brain. Specifically, it's a constant mental chatter about food. What you're going to eat next, whether there's something good in the fridge, the pull you feel walking past a bakery, the thought that hits you 20 minutes after a meal. Researchers have started calling this food noise. And food noise lives in your brain's reward system, the mesolimbic pathway, the nucleus accumbens, the ventral tegmental area. These are the same dopamine circuits that govern addiction, motivation, pleasure. Every time you think about a highly palatable food, something fatty, sweet, salty, those circuits fire. They create anticipatory craving. They make the thought feel urgent. GLP-1 receptors are scattered across at least 10 brain regions, including those reward areas. And semaglutide, it turns out, acts on them. University of Southern California researcher Scott Konoski and others have shown that GLP-1 receptor activation in the mesolimbic system dampens the dopamine spike you'd normally get from food cues. It doesn't eliminate dopamine, it rebalances the brain's response to food-related signals so they don't feel like emergencies. Patients describe this as a switch flipping, not, "I'm disciplined now," more like, "I walked past a pizza place and just didn't think about it. The noise went quiet." Now here's where it gets genuinely wild. There is early evidence, preliminary but real, that the same mechanism may reduce cravings for alcohol, nicotine, and other addictive substances. In a Phase 2 randomized controlled trial published in JAMA Psychiatry in February 2025, researchers at UNC Chapel Hill gave low-dose semaglutide to 48 adults with alcohol use disorder. The result? Significantly reduced weekly alcohol craving compared to placebo, reduced alcohol consumption in lab self-administration tests, and, as a secondary finding, fewer cigarettes per day in those who smoked. Phase 3 trials are underway, including in veterans. The implication is that GLP-1 receptors aren't just regulating metabolism, they may be regulating the brain's relationship with rewarding substances in general.
And that still kind of messes with my head. By the way, How, if you're finding this as fascinating as I did when I first got into it, do me a quick favor and hit that subscribe button below. It genuinely helps us make more videos like this, and we've got a lot more where this came from. All right, back to it.
Now, this next part was not expected. At all. When Ozempic first launched, the FDA actually required Novo Nordisk to run a large cardiovascular outcomes trial. Not because they thought it would help the heart, but because they wanted to make sure it wasn't going to hurt it. Prior diabetes drugs had caused cardiac problems. Regulators needed to know. The trial was called SUSTAIN-6, and then a much larger one came after, SELECT. Over 17,600 patients. All of them had existing cardiovascular disease and were either overweight or obese, but none of them had type 2 diabetes. 41 countries, over 3 years. The result? Semaglutide cut the risk of major adverse cardiovascular events, heart attack, stroke, cardiovascular death, by 20%. That's a hazard ratio of 0.80, statistically significant, published in the New England Journal of Medicine. But here's the part that surprised researchers. The benefit started emerging at around 20 days into the trial, before significant weight loss had even occurred. Which means this isn't just about losing pounds. Semaglutide appears to be doing something directly to the cardiovascular system, reducing systemic inflammation, improving how blood vessels dilate, possibly stabilizing atherosclerotic plaques. The FDA approved semaglutide for cardiovascular risk reduction. It's no longer just a diabetes or weight drug in the eyes of regulators. In parallel, the FLOW trial showed a 24% reduction in major kidney disease events in patients with type 2 diabetes and chronic kidney disease. Here's a thing I think deserves more attention. Ozempic did not cure Alzheimer's disease. There was enormous hope, early observational data, plausible biology, that GLP-1 drugs might slow or prevent cognitive decline. Novo Nordisk ran 2 large Phase 3 trials called EVOKE and EVOKE Plus, enrolling over 3,800 early Alzheimer's patients. The results came back in late 2025. No difference versus placebo. None. Researchers now think the distinction may be treatment versus prevention. Can it prevent neurodegeneration in people who don't yet have it? That question is still open. But it's a good reminder that a drug that does remarkable things in one system doesn't automatically conquer everything. What is coming? Oral semaglutide for weight loss got approved late 2025. The wegovy pill produced results of 16.6% weight loss at 64 weeks in phase 3 trials. No injection needed, no refrigeration. And the next generation of drugs is already arriving. Retatrutide, a triple agonist hitting GLP-1, GIP, and glucagon receptors simultaneously, showed 24% weight reduction at 48 weeks in a phase 2 NEJM trial, with some participants losing over 30%. That number may be higher in phase 3 data that emerged in late 2025. And there's one more thing worth knowing. If you stop taking Ozempic, most of the weight comes back. In the Step 1 extension trial, patients regained roughly 2/3 of their prior weight loss within a year of stopping. Cardiometabolic benefits faded by about a year and a half off drug. This happens because your brain defends a body weight set point, a biological target it's been calibrated to maintain. GLP-1 drugs override that set point while you're on them. But the moment you stop, the system reasserts. Your appetite returns. The food noise returns. This isn't a character flaw. It's how the neurobiology works. Which is why most clinicians are increasingly treating this as a long-term chronic disease medication, not a quick fix.
So that's all for today. A molecule from lizard venom became the most widely used drug on Earth. It rewires your pancreas, your stomach, your hunger circuits, and your brain's reward system simultaneously. It cuts heart attacks by 20%. It may reshape the biology of addiction. And when you stop taking it, the body pulls back toward where it started. The science isn't finished. But what we already know is genuinely one of the more extraordinary stories in modern medicine. If this got your brain going, don't forget to subscribe and click on one of these cards to watch more amazing videos. Thank you so much for watching.